welcome to Procurement Pivots, the podcast for procurement professionals wanting to navigate change successfully and create career success on your own terms. I'm Donna Bowden, procurement career coach and founder of Narrate Your Career.
And I'm Laura Sellers, executive coach for procurement and founder of Coaching for Procurement. And between us, we bring almost 25 years of supporting and working with procurement professionals. And it's fair to say we've navigated many of our own career pivots along the way. And now we're here to help you do the same.
Each episode will share practical strategies, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you confidently tackle the changes and challenges in your procurement career.
Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Procurement Pivots podcast. Hey, Donna.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. We are back in the recording seat. I love it.
We are for another episode.
Right, so what we are doing, so if you are a long-time listener, we have just wrapped up our 4-part series to help you to set yourself up for success sustainably with your career goals for 2026. And before that, we used to do a series that was based on our Pivots acronym. So we're coming full circle and we're going back and revisiting some of those topics and delving down even deeper into a more detailed step-by-step to help you to embrace this year and make the changes and advancements that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. So we both, we look back because I mean the last few months have absolutely flown by, but we've recorded kind of near on 30 episodes now, which is unbelievable.
Amazing.
And we've both looked back. I suppose looked back at the topics that are most relevant to us individually, but also we've looked at the viewing stats, the downloads, and and just kind of chosen which episodes we want to, as Laura said, kind of revisit and come at from a different perspective, I would say. So today's one is all about positioning, which is something that I have been talking about a lot recently. For any of you that are connected with me on LinkedIn, because positioning is something that I live and breathe daily with my clients. So today we're going to be revisiting the positioning topic, but from a very different perspective. Not different, but focused really for those of you that are considering an external move in 2026, because we know at the beginning of the year, many of you right now will be thinking about a move. And so, we just thought it would be really helpful. And this is what I do day to day, but actually haven't really kind of spoken on the podcast yet in much detail about kind of how I'd advise people going about their job search in today's market. So we just thought it could be incredibly helpful for any of you sat there thinking, oh, I think I might want to start dipping my toe in, or for those of you that are kind of actively looking right now, just to, hopefully set you up for success with that search.
Yeah, brilliant. And like you say, positioning is a core topic for you in terms of what we're looking into today is that external positioning, right? And we both have crossover in our things, but I would love to hear more about your perspective on this, Donna, because especially with your background before you came into the career coaching space, I'd love to know a bit more in detail how you support your clients to do that and what the listeners here could expect to focus on in order to position themselves in the best way possible this year.
Yeah, great. So I suppose just on that, because I guess we always assume that people listening have been listening from the beginning and know
true.
who we are, but actually maybe it's worth me just giving a really, really quick kind of run through on my background and why actually this is a topic that I focus on so much. So these days I very much work as a procurement career coach, but my former career for 20 something years was working as a senior recruiter and then a recruitment leader. And actually I only realised the other day that because I've kind of moved into that space 25 years ago, but actually now it's officially half of my career has been spent dedicated to supporting procurement. So it's over 12 years now. So I guess I come at positioning with a few different hats. I suppose I've been a hiring manager myself and have hired multiple teams of people over that time frame, but I've been supporting people with, how they can secure their roles and hire into their teams. So yeah, I guess I'm able to bring quite a unique perspective as someone who has been the hiring manager, but also someone that has been supporting individuals, particularly in, I would say, what has been more challenging market conditions. Although I have to say, there's some really positive signs at the moment, which is great. Like the early signs for 2026 have felt much more encouraging actually than we've seen for a while. So long may that continue for everyone. But yeah, I thought it might be worth kind of just sharing that. So I've been working as a career coach for about 18 months now, and I've developed, haven't really named it as such, but I've developed a career positioning framework essentially that I work through with a lot of my clients, because so many of my clients, and they're predominantly senior procurement professionals, they're coming to me either because they're unclear about what they want to do next in their career and they've reached a bit of a crossroads, or they're feeling stuck, or sometimes they're coming to me because they're actively looking for a new senior position and they're really finding the market incredibly difficult. So people come to me at different stages, but essentially most of them are considering a move at some point in time. And that's why they're coming. They want to build their confidence around how do they actually go about their search, how do they position themselves to stand out? Because even in really good market conditions, particularly at senior levels, like it's so competitive. There's not that, there's never, like relatively, there's never as many senior roles out there as there are mid-level roles and junior roles. And often there's lots of incredibly good, talented leaders that are looking for a new position. So yeah, so I've developed a kind of, I suppose, a framework that I run through with the clients that I'm working with, which is 6 steps. And I wanted to share that today because if any of you listening or watching, for those on YouTube, um, it can be really overwhelming knowing where to start. And the market has changed so much in the last few years that I just think it's helpful to kind of, have an idea about what are the things that are actually working and most important right now.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. And like you say, it can be so overwhelming when someone comes to a coaching session, right? Even if they've made that brave, courageous step of thinking, okay, I can't get there on my own, how can I get some help? To then come into a session and then be like, I just don't know where to start. I'm feeling overwhelmed, seeing other people getting jobs or not
Mhm.
getting jobs. And, it can really cloud someone's judgment. It can also change. You mentioned earlier about different hats and perspectives. And we talk about this a lot, don't we?
Yeah.
About how to look at things through different lenses. So where would you start? When they come to that session, what's the first step of that framework?
So where I start with people is often not where they start themselves. So I think that's the first thing. So I think often when people have reached the point that they know they're ready for a move, often one of the first things they start thinking about is, oh, I need to do my CV, the dreaded CV. Oh, I probably need to like do something with my LinkedIn. But for me, that's quite a long way down the line, actually. So where I tend to start with my clients, and actually, this is what I did when I repositioned myself from recruitment to changing and setting up the business. Like for me, the beginning part is getting clear on your future direction. And that we've spoken about this a lot, haven't we, on various episodes on the podcast. If you don't know what it is you most want, then it's really difficult to set yourself up and position yourself to get there.
Mm,
And so many people think step one is the CV. But the problem is like CVs, I mean, no one loves a CV. It's quite difficult to produce a
mm,
really well written CV that doesn't sound like everyone else, that stands out. But actually, if you're not clear on what it is you're looking for, you're never going to talk to those people hiring that type of person. So the problem is like, if you're just like, oh, I just want another senior role without really thinking about the things that are most important, like it ends up being quite a generic corporate sounding document. So for me, the step one really is about starting to get clear on your future direction, which sounds really simple, but again, we've spoken about this. This can be a really big topic for lots of people. Like, that is not one conversation, that is not one question, or usually, or one session. That's kind of a combination of lots of different pieces of work that you kind of do to then get to the point of kind of realizing, okay, that is the right path, the most aligned path, the path that I'm most excited about. And so actually, I spend quite a lot of time with quite a lot of my clients at that point, because actually there's no point chasing roles that aren't going to excite you, that
Mm.
aren't going to fulfill you, that are going to burn you out, that are going to leave you questioning yourself. Like, actually, yeah, like really understanding what it is you're most excited about, what you most want, not what should you do
Mm.
next. That should word comes up a lot, and we've
Oh, it
spoken about
comes
it,
up.
yeah, all the time. But actually, like, when you are at that kind of pivot point, see what I did, in your career, um, you've got choice. You have got choice. Like, the world is a big place, and actually, like, you can create that future direction for yourself, even if it's not obvious at first how you can make it happen. And so, yeah, for me, step one is a deep dive really into understanding what is it that's going to light you up most, what is it that's going to make you feel most confident in what you're doing, make you feel most excited, want to get up on a Monday morning, not be lying awake asleep for hours on a Sunday night going, oh, another week ahead. So that's probably the most important part of the process, actually, getting clear on what it is you want to do next. And I
Yeah.
guess that's probably, I'm assuming, quite a big part of a lot of the work you do with your clients as well. I'm assuming.
Well, it's about reconnecting with that purpose, isn't it? Because we know how powerful it is. It's not the first time we've talked about it on this
No,
podcast. We
no,
have an episode dedicated to purpose. But I think, again, thinking about perspective and lenses and hats, like we were talking about, it's around pulling that trigger on purpose when you're in that moment of feeling stuck. And for what you're talking about, they come and they're thinking, "Oh, I'm so overwhelmed," and like that trigger. What do they call it? Spraying and praying with your CV
yeah,
and
yeah,
applying for
spray and
anything that
pray,
comes
yeah,
along. So yeah. Absolutely, it comes up a lot. And for me, in my clients, it might be positioning themselves internally as they go into a
yeah,
new role. So, there is always crossover here. And I think in terms of that step of that framework, I also have one of my own. But I think, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head because say people think it's the CV you start with,
yeah,
but that
yeah.
first part, we sometimes invite our clients to join us in a space that is like, actually, this bit's really important. We get this
Mm,
bit right, the CV takes care of itself.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, just to kind of echo that, so I'm just coming towards the end of a group program that I've been running with 5 heads of procurement. So my procurement job search accelerator. And I had a session with some of them today, and throughout, I think they've consistently said, I think they came to me thinking, Donna's going to help me to get that next job. She'll probably tell me to do a few things, and then it will be this, like, do these things, and then suddenly I get the job. But actually, like, the feedback, they weren't expecting to do so much work at the beginning on themselves. Who are you? What do you want most? What's going to light you up? And like they've said, actually, like, that work has been totally unexpected, but really quite like transformational, and it's really shifted their mindset a lot. And one of them said quite early on, actually, and this was a CPO, like, really, really great individual, really, really capable. And actually, he said after the first few sessions of doing that work, like, what he recognized was some of the roles he had been kind of chasing, they totally weren't the jobs that he wanted to do. And actually, like, when he was showing up, he was kind of doing it thinking, oh, maybe. But actually, now it's really clear to him looking back that he just wasn't at all excited about those
Mm.
roles, and he was going through the motion because there's not that many roles out there, etc. But now it's like actually having that clarity of really specifically, this is what actually excites me, getting back to doing X, Y, Z again. And I just think you show up, like you said, like, when you get clear on that where you want to go next, things like the CV become much easier because you know who you're trying to talk to in the CV
Yeah.
and you know what
Yeah.
you're trying to say. So, yeah,
Yeah.
for me, step one, and it's not necessarily very easy. So, I do not want to downplay this. For some people, getting clear on what you want to do next is incredibly difficult. For some people, that could be weeks or months of work. Some people would find it very difficult to know where to start. Like it can be really overwhelming to know where to start with this. Some of the types of stuff I do with individuals, it is looking at things like purpose, your values, your strengths, not just your strengths, but what are your strengths that you actually enjoy using as well? Because there's no point finding yourself stuck in a job that you can do really well that just bores you to tears. Like, what is the point? Life is too short. So step one is about getting clear. And then
Mhm.
the second part, which for me is just so fundamental, and I think these first two parts are for some people the unexpected bits, but they are just critical. So this second part for me is then once you're clear on where you want to head, and that might not be narrowing it down just to one route, but it's getting the clarity of kind of what are the most exciting options. It's getting really clear on what is your kind of unique value proposition, what's your story, what is that personal brand that you want to project out to people, and it's tying that into where you want to go next. Because
Mm.
actually, if you're looking to go into a bigger role, you need to show up as the version of that person that is going to succeed at that level. So it's really, I think the unique value piece, like we've we've been in an incredibly competitive market, particularly at senior levels, and it's not uncommon, particularly where businesses are advertising, which they absolutely shouldn't be at senior levels, but they do. They can get hundreds and hundreds of applications for one role. So
Yeah.
if you don't understand what makes you different and better, if you don't understand it, first of all, like you're never ever going to be able to communicate that to someone else.
Mm.
And they're only going to hire you if they think you are the absolute best person for the job that is going to deliver the role most successfully.
Yeah.
So it's no longer enough to say, I'm a really good procurement leader with 20 years experience and, I've delivered this great stuff. Like that's not enough because everyone else in the process is probably going to say that exact same stuff.
Mm.
Like, this sounds harsh, but it's no longer enough to say you're good at negotiating. Everyone's saying that. It's no longer enough to say, oh, I'm really good at building internal stakeholder relationships. Everyone is saying that. It's no longer enough to show that you've built a team because, again, probably other good, capable people at that level are going to show that they've built and turned around teams as well. So
Mm.
it's really kind of leaning into your story. That story bit is like, for me, it's everything. It's like, you know, your CV and your jobs, that's a list of jobs, but actually it's kind of, it's the reasons why you did the jobs, the ways in which you made it kind of successful. It's the narrative behind like the decisions. That's
Yeah.
what makes you different. Like the fact that you've worked in procurement for 20 years is never going to be a differentiator. The fact
Mm.
that I'm an IT procurement category specialist, that's probably not going to be a differentiator. So it's actually really thinking about like what are those things that are unique to you, because there
Mm.
is only one you with your set of
Yeah.
experience and your background and your ways of working.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you said about how the first step can be quite hard about not knowing the future direction,
Mm.
this is where I see this come up in terms of the storytelling, the unique value when I'm working with my clients, because this is where comparisonitis can come up. I actually don't know if that's a real word or if that's just been made up, like comparisonitis, comparison trap, whatever we want to call it, it
Yeah.
exists. And but also that thing about because you're putting yourself out there even more to say, well, I'm different to
Mm.
this person because. So there's a confidence piece there as well, which I imagine comes up a lot in this stage
Oh,
of your framework.
this is the hardest part for most people, but for very, very different reasons. I think, where I think I am very fortunate because I've had this holistic view of the marketplace. And so actually, you know, people find it very difficult to know what their standout things are because often they just
Mm.
assume, like, oh no, everyone else is doing this in this way. Like, they don't necessarily realize, like, some of the things they've done, that's incredibly rare and it's amazing. And so, like, I mean, so many people, I think, as well, are like incredibly uncomfortable talking about their strengths. And sometimes
Yeah.
they can't see them. And when they can see them, they really are uncomfortable about talking about them. So, for most of the people I've worked with, and it's a range of people, range of confidence levels at the beginning, this is the hardest part of the work that I do
Yeah.
with them,
Yeah.
because. And it can take some time, like it really can. Again, it's not a single conversation. Da-da, here's my story, here's my uni.
Woo!
Yeah, it's I wish it was. I really wish it was because that'd probably be quite helpful in my business. Come and have one session and da-da, it's all clear.
Mm.
Um, but like this bit, it's hard, it can be uncomfortable, it can be challenging, but when they get there, and they do all get there, they do all get there, but different stages, like the confidence, the difference, the way in
Mm.
which they show up, even in the sessions. And this is the bit that it's changed everything, I would say, for the clients that I've supported. The clients that have gone from being so fearful of interviewing and not getting past the first stage, and like actually they just show up so differently because they
Mm.
then recognize I actually like I have got a really great story to tell, and I think it's like sometimes it's we work on this together. Like sometimes the things that they're shying away from, their differences, i.e., they're worried about this different past. It's maybe, an unexpected background that they've come from. Sometimes it's about leaning into those things that they're worried about because that can sometimes be the thing that gives you that competitive edge.
Mm.
Sometimes the fact that you're not a traditional procurement person, like that
Yeah.
can be the difference. So, yeah, we spend quite a lot of time here, because for me, like, particularly at senior levels, but at all levels in procurement, like if you don't understand your value, you're not going to show your value. And if you don't show your value, people are not going to understand your value. And if they don't understand your value, they're not going to hire you and
Yeah.
they're not going to give you opportunities. And so this is just like this is the foundation of all of the work we do.
Hmm.
And the rest of it is about then showcasing the value in loads of different ways. But this bit is like it's hard, but it's game changing. It is
Yeah.
game changing.
It is that going through the discomfort to get there on the other side. And I could delve into this one so much deeper, but
Go
I'm
on,
conscious you
go
want.
on.
Well, I think I had to catch up this morning with a client who we were talking about that strength and positioning. They've been in one particular well-known brand for quite a long time, and now they're understanding, and they've got more of a, as I described it, a spring in their step around how them realizing by looking through a different lens that how much they achieved when they were there. And so it can be so hard to see our strengths because depending on, how, I don't know, like your background, your experience, your unique view of the world, it sounds like showing off. Nobody wants
Yeah.
to be seen as a show off, right?
No, no.
So there's that. But also we take for granted our strengths because they come so easy to us and therefore we don't even see them as strengths, right?
Yeah.
And so it comes so easy to us. So other people might see us as really strong in a particular area that we just take for granted, which is why it's
Yeah.
really important to do this work because it's like it's not even like you're pushing yourself out your comfort zone. Once you realize that is a strength that you have, you feel more comfortable, like, oh yeah, I can do that standing on my head,
Yeah.
not realizing that is actually a strength. So there's so many different layers to that. But
Yeah.
like you say, that just to land on what you said towards the end there, it's not comfortable. But working with a coach gives you
Yeah.
that sense of
Yeah.
psychological safety so you can explore it. And if some and also, if you've contracted well with your coach for this to get the feedback and
Yeah.
for that to be done in a safe way, I just think it's such a valuable exercise. Like you say, it's
Yeah.
powerful and that can propel them
Yeah.
forward with their resilience to take the no's and get
Yeah.
the yes that matters most.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. And I think everyone, like it is hard. And I wish there was like one way that I just do this work with my clients and one way will get the results, but it's not like that at all. Like
No.
different things will work with different people. And like some people, like I've had clients recently and I've got exercises that they will do in advance of some of the sessions. And, I had this one client in particular and she's like, I couldn't do the strengths exercise. And she really was fine. She didn't even know why she couldn't do it, but even identifying her own strengths, like she found it incredibly difficult. And, through a series of kind of sessions together, I was kind of picking up on some of the things she was saying. And actually, we ended up looking at it from externals lens viewpoint kind of initially, actually what was the kind of feedback she was getting. Like actually I could see she was doing incredibly well. Like some of the things she was doing were like amazing, like in really short spaces of time, but she wasn't recognizing those as being a strength because she just thought that's just what everyone would do. And so we with her, like we had to look at it from the viewpoint of others that she'd worked with, and then we brought it back to herself, and then she could see it, and then she
Yeah.
was owning it, and then like now it's amazing. Like all of her interactions now with the business, like whenever I speak to her, she's like, "Oh, I got this great feedback," because she's now asking for feedback
Yeah.
routinely as part of what she does because she's getting that gauge from other people of what's going well and what can she improve. So yeah,
Yeah.
so this part is really important. So again, going back to any of you listening or watching that are thinking about putting yourself on the market, or considering or being open, and this still applies internally, externally. It's this part is not about the internal versus the external, but I would just encourage you to take a bit of time to get clear on, firstly, what is it you would love to do next, and secondly, what is your story? What is it? How is it you want to show up? And what are those different things about you that you can share that are going to position you better for those types of roles? And then with the clients that I work with that are looking externally, then we take that value piece that we've just spoken about, and then we're starting to look at all the different touch points in the process. Because I'm afraid to say there is no like golden nugget right now at all. The days of just having a good CV being enough are long gone, unfortunately, particularly at senior levels. So it's not enough to have a good CV if you're serious about creating opportunity. But the CV is one of those touch points. So it's about making sure your CV tells your story. I could talk for hours about CVs and I'm not because we don't have hours, but your CV is a really important kind of part of your toolkit to showcase your value. It's not about listing all your tasks, it's about the story. And people need to understand context. Like, you know, if you're a senior leader applying for senior procurement leadership roles, everyone that's kind of being considered is also going to be operating at that similar level. So it isn't enough to just say, like, I've kind of managed X £100 million worth of spend and these categories. Like, people reading need to understand the context of what have you done, what impact, it's the difference. Like, what difference have you made in those roles that you've been in, and what was the context? And everyone talks about like the advice, make sure you've got metrics and achievements. Yes, absolutely, you need that. But you know, if you're talking about savings, like that's the obvious one on a CV, people talk about savings all the time. But if you don't show the context of that deal, you know, how do people even understand that that is a good result? Like, actually, like, people will put on their CV, oh, achieve 20% savings, but give the context. Like in some environments, that might have been like the most unexpected,
Mm.
like amazing result because of the set of circumstance. Yet in others, they're like, they turn their nose up and say 20, we would expect 40 on a thing on a
Mm.
project like that. So if you don't show the context, they can't understand the outcome because the
No.
person reading the CV probably doesn't know the company, or they might know the company name, but they won't know the setup. They won't know the context. And this always amazes me that, and this is the work I do. It's kind of extracting all the details. Like, okay, you've got this project on the CV. Why have you put it on there? And actually, when you start talking to someone, they'll be like, oh, because it was really high profile, it was really challenging, it was really sensitive,
Mm.
and none of that is ever on the CV. All it
Yeah.
is like the project name and then the kind of rough outcome, but that doesn't tell the story. Like,
Mm.
that doesn't stand out. People don't really understand it. They don't know why it was important. So I always say to people, if it is important enough to put it on your CV, think about how you can show why it was important.
Yeah.
Um, and just make sure your CV tells that story. Like if you was in a room with the hiring manager for 5 minutes, what would be the key nuggets of information
Mm.
that you'd want to get across? And then it's looking at your CV and saying, like, do those things stand out? Are they front and center? Because if they're not, your CV is doing you a disservice and it's
Yeah.
closing the doors that you want to open.
No, that's such a great point. And it is that storytelling that I think is such a common challenge for a lot of procurement professionals. And do you know what? We talk about mindset a lot, right? And it can be such I don't even know how to describe like a woolly subject in some cases, but there's always a mindset element behind all of these aspects. If we've
Oh,
got a block
totally.
in our minds about being able to sell a story, being able
Yeah,
to, because also, like you say, that where somebody might turn their nose up at a percentage of savings because they'd expect more, depending on the experience, the context, the circumstance, but also how they turned that stakeholder relationship around,
yeah.
or even where they know how tricky it was and it still haunts them a little bit, that
Mm,
also might stop them from selling that story to the next one.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's so much tied up in that. And again, being able to talk that through with someone who can help you decipher that, hold the mirror up to you, it can be really powerful,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
powerful.
And I think as well, like the mindset piece, no one loves writing their own CV. It is like one of those horrific jobs that no one wants to do. It's
No.
on the list. I know I should update it. I know I should update it. It's a chore. It is seen as like an administrative job. Oh, I
Mm.
need to, I need to update the CV. Can't be bothered. Um, it's your PR. Like that is your marketing tool. That is not an admin exercise. Like that is a sales document. And so I think the whole mindset around like, I need to do my CV.
Mm.
Um, when you get a CV you're proud of, when you share it, you just feel different. You feel
Mm.
confident. And like I know no one likes to write a CV, but the difference, like I've seen in people when they're like, that is me now. That is me on a page. And
Yeah.
it's not just a load of corporate words, the same corporate words that everyone else is saying. It's them, like it actually represents them and how they speak every day, how they vocalize things, what's important to them. Like, so it is a ball ache, and it's not about just sticking your CV in Chat GPT because then it's going to blend in even more.
Yeah.
It's about giving yourself the space, but recognizing that actually the difference it can be the difference between you securing your dream job and not. But unfortunately, that by itself probably isn't enough. That said, so moving on, because I'm conscious of time. So normally we do the CV, and this is the linear journey, but life's not linear. And so, dependent on their situation, we chop and change. But normally we do the CV first, and then we come to LinkedIn, because in today's job market, pretty much every recruitment process will involve LinkedIn in some way, shape, or form. Um, they are either finding the people on LinkedIn. So even when a company is, if they're just looking in their own like talent pool, if you like, a hiring manager might go on their own LinkedIn. They might run a search on their own LinkedIn of their first connection and say, right, who do I know that's like exceptional at business process outsourcing, for example?
Mm.
And so, like, done well, your LinkedIn profile is a search engine. It will enable you to appear in more of those searches that are being run every day. Companies every day are looking at their own networks on LinkedIn to find good, talented procurement professionals, procurement leaders. And so the more work you do to optimize your profile, firstly, the more chance that you're going to be found. And when they do come across you, if it's written in an impactful way, showing the difference you've made, not just like, so many people's profiles is still just the company name, the job title. There's no detail. We don't know anything from that. But done well, like it's like your landing page, it's your shop window, it's your personal brand. It can tell so much more than your CV. And your CV might be enough for the hiring managers to then look at your LinkedIn, but they will rule people out at the LinkedIn stage. So they might be finding people on LinkedIn, or they might be receiving your CV and then they look on LinkedIn. And done well, like if someone is active on LinkedIn, you get to see how they communicate. You get to understand a bit about who are they connected to, what types of things are they engaging with. Like you can look at their previous comments, so you can get a feel of their personality. When done well, they'll have recommendations. And so you can actually see what other people are saying, which is gold because nowadays no company will give a reference. So
Mm.
companies are hiring leaders into their business without taking references, and no one is comfortable doing that. So if someone comes with some public recommendations from good, credible people, it's going to give a lot of comfort. And
Yeah.
decisions can be made. Like if you've got two people you're deciding between, if one person's got 6, 7 amazing recommendations from really credible senior people, they're much more likely to be
Mm.
considered for that role if they're equal. So LinkedIn, I feel like we need to do a topic on LinkedIn. We talk about it quite a lot, and I think we need to do an episode which is dedicated to LinkedIn.
Was
And
my rant not enough a few episodes ago?
but so without going into it in loads of detail, like whether you like LinkedIn, hate it, um, there's some minimum kind of, just minimum things I would say, like get your profile optimized, make sure you're using keywords and phrases, make sure you've got detail about what you've actually delivered. Because if you haven't got those things, you're not going to be found. And companies are searching daily, recruiters are searching daily, search firms have got teams of researchers looking for people for the roles that they've got. And these aren't publicized jobs, they're not advertised jobs. You're not going to get access to them unless you know someone who knows about it or unless they find you. So you need to be able to be searched for. Um, and then networking. So networking, again, maybe we should do an episode on networking, I feel.
I'm noting it down alongside LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think a networking one would be really great. But all the evidence suggests, and I've done various polls over the last 18 months, a significant proportion of people are securing their role through a network relationship that they have. It's actually the majority of people securing roles are either getting it through someone they know, like an industry contact, or a relationship with a recruiter. Like relationships with the right people are everything. And if you want to open doors and if you want to access the hidden job market, which is where the most exciting jobs are getting filled, then you need to step out of your comfort zone and be willing to develop relationships with the right people and then nurture the relationships, like keep them, like it's everything. Absolutely
Yeah.
everything. And there has never been a time where it's more important than right now. And most of the time, the jobs, even if they've been advertised, like there is already some kind of personal connection with that person to someone in that business. And
Mm.
that takes away the fear of hiring the wrong person if they're already known in some capacity. So,
Yeah.
so important. And then the final bit of the jigsaw, I'm really conscious of time, is really try and build your interview confidence before you need it.
Mhm.
So many people wait until the interview request comes in, and often the interview request is for like 2, 3 days' time. Some says it might be a week, but normally it's days rather than weeks. And then they start preparing, like sometimes they start preparing for like the first interview they've had in years and years. And often it's the first interview they've had at that level as well. And
Mm.
that's like you're putting yourself under so much unnecessary pressure. And especially right now, most people don't have lots of interviews in lots of companies at the same time. People are putting themselves, particularly if they've, they've their contracts finished early, they've been made redundant. It's the pressure, like when you get the interview, like you want to get the job, and you're putting yourself under loads of pressure to have to prepare for this interview in a really short space of time. So my advice would be just really, even if you're not active on the market right now, just start thinking about like how can you build your interview confidence? Like there's certain questions, common questions. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about a time where you've worked with a really difficult stakeholder, probably many times. But it's like preparing for the common questions, build your confidence, and you're just going to show up really differently. Whereas actually, like, if you get this interview request and then suddenly you're having to do all the prep on the company and the interviewers and maybe do a presentation and then fine tune your like general interviewing questions, and like it's just too much. It's too much, and too many people are going into interviews like not as confident because they know they're not as prepared as they can be because they're doing it really last minute. And so much of this you can do in advance. And my advice would be either practice it out loud or even better, practice with someone that you trust that I suppose can give you a good kind of not just someone's going to say, oh, yes, that's really good, or someone that's going to pick holes in everything and,
Mm.
reduce your confidence. So choose that person wisely, but practicing out loud, even using Chat GPT, the voice function. You can do like you could do a mock interview with that. That's better than not saying it out loud.
Every day's a school day. I had no idea you could do that with ChatGPT. There's my weekend
Hang
rabbit
on, do
hole.
you not know the voice function?
I mean, I've probably seen it there. I've probably just not used it. I think it
Oh,
depends on like on how you best like to
okay.
learn. But there's my rabbit hole for the weekend.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I haven't yet worked out how to swap the annoying person's voice for a slightly different accent. There's a like default that is quite irritating, but it's really helpful. Like if you're practicing like a presentation, because you can actually, so it's a voice function, so you just speak in rather than type. It will transcribe it for you as well, but then you can ask for feedback, and they'll give feedback like spoken, so it feels like a conversation, so it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like you type in. So it's really, yeah, I mean I still need to delve deeper into it, but it's really good, really good.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant. Thank
da, da,
you.
da, da, that was longer than I expected, but I just think actually it makes such a massive difference. Like I've now supported, I realised recently I've supported over 50 clients now since running the business, and
Wow.
the majority of them in some form I've taken through this kind of positioning framework, and we've maybe joined it at different parts, but it has made such a difference to some people that were just really, they were really struggling, and then suddenly they were really confident with it. I've had people that went from just being so nervous about interviews, petrified, their words not mine, about interviews, to like enjoying interviews and getting multiple offers. Like it changes everything. I think if you
Mm.
know where you're going, where you want to go, and how you then show up that's relevant and impactful for that level, like it changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, well done. I just want to say well done for supporting those people because it's, we've spoken before about this around what a privilege it is to walk alongside our clients who choose to
Yeah.
work with us. But I think, it sounds like such a brilliant framework and, it was one of our longer episodes, but I think it's been incredibly valuable for someone to understand exactly all the different perspectives that are needed to compete in today's marketplace, really, when it comes to those roles. So yeah,
Yeah.
well done. And I think, knowing what I know about you and for the people who've worked with you, you've done a great job and you continue to do so. So
Oh,
thank you for
that's very
sharing that with
kind.
us.
Thank you. And if anyone is kind of listening, and if you've got any questions on any of this, like feel free to drop me a message on LinkedIn. I'm happy to kind of answer more questions. And I do, sometimes I'll do like webinars on this in a bit more detail. So, keep an eye out as well for any of the free things that I might be doing. And of course, if you'd like to come and work with me, then also get in touch. But yeah, it changes everything. So I cannot kind of recommend like putting your positioning on your radar for this year. It's not about looking for a job. Whatever your scenario, like it will make a massive difference. Massive, massive difference.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for sharing with us, Donna.
Ah, no worries. Okay,
Great.
we will see
All
you
right.
next time.
All right. See you soon. Take care.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Procurement Pivots. We hope today's episode gave you actionable tips to help you to continue to move forward in your procurement career.
If you enjoyed the conversation, follow our episodes, share them with others, and please support us on our social media channels for others that might be interested to tune in.